yours, Daniel. You can take it from here.
Thank you. Thank you, Rachel, for the introduction. I'm going to share my screen. Sharing the screen. So just double check, thumbs up, everything can be seen. Perfect. Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to today's webinar and with the topic mobile test management done right. Before we start, a quick introduction about myself. Hi, I'm Daniel Knott, working currently as a senior product manager in Germany. But I'm a mobile tester by heart. I mean, I have worked in the mobile testing industry or testing industry for more than 10 years. Slightly shifted my focus at the moment to product management, but it doesn't mean that I'm still connected to the testing community and giving webinars like this today. And for those who don't know, I also wrote a book, Hands-on Mobile App Testing, which got translated also into German language. And there's also another ebook that I wrote is Smartwatch App Testing. You can find me on Twitter with the handle you can see, and you can also find me on my blog at Ventures in QA if you'd like to get more knowledge about or information about mobile testing, testing in general. Feel free to drop by and also send me a message via Twitter or an email in case you have a question, even after the webinar. So what's today's agenda all about? Today, I would like to talk about the current state of the mobile market. To use this as a starting point for today's webinar. I want to talk about users' expectation when it comes to mobile. I want to talk about getting to know your customers, what you can do in order to get more information about your customers, to learn from their habits and to improve your testing scenarios. I will also talk about how to involve customers in the development phase. There are some techniques that you can use in order to involve them into the current development and to get some feedback. I will talk about mobile testing scenarios for sure, like what is important to test on mobile devices and for mobile apps and web pages. I'm talking about some challenges that I have seen in the past years. I picked 2 of them, and we'll go into some more details about that. That was one too fast, but nevertheless, I will also talk about the releasing of mobile apps, and that's important to release the mobile products frequently. And at the very end, I will also talk about some key takeaways. So it's a pretty packed agenda. Let's get right to the mobile market. So some current numbers. So for example, in 2020, which I found really impressive, the number was that more than 1 billion devices have been sold worldwide to users, right? That's iOS and Android at the same time. Other mobile platforms that don't play that big of a role anymore. So that's quite an impressive number, and this number still continue to grow. And also some interesting resources that I found, and it's by the end of 2023, more than 4.3 billion people or humans on the world will use a smartphone, which is also quite an impressive number. So we have still some room to grow here. Also, by the end of 2023, mobile app revenue will be more than $935 billion, which is a huge number. So there's lots of potential for your app businesses to make money out of your apps and mobile apps that you have developed. Apple and Google stores offer more than 4 million apps that users can download from. And that's particularly interesting to know and good to know that, for example, you have competitor apps or similar apps in the App Store. It's quite easy for users to change to another app if your app is, for example, full of bugs, is crashing at the start and stuff like that. So it's a quite competitive market, and it's also important to make yourself really on the top of the list on the different categories that are available. Another interesting number that I found is that 21% of millennials open their apps more than 50 times per day. So it's quite often, actually. And also that almost 70% of all US digital media time comes from mobile apps. That's quite impressive. So that's really heavily used by users, especially in the US. And this is an interesting number to see, and also to see when the apps are used the most, maybe in the morning, at lunchtime, in the afternoon or the evening, when people are in front of a TV. An average smartphone user uses 10 apps per day and 30 each month. It's not that big of a deal if you think of yourself how many apps you have installed, and if only 10 apps were used per day, your app has to really stand out from the crowd, from other apps, to that really bring value to the user so that they can really make benefit of using your app. So that's important to know. And last but not least, in 2020, more than 200 million apps have been downloaded. So that's also quite a big number to keep in mind, and that's still growing. Next topic I wanted to talk about is basically three examples that I brought, which shows you that mobile technology changed our life. Yeah, and the first one, maybe I've seen this several times on the internet right now. The picture on top is 25. It's the Pope election, where the people were standing in front of the balcony watching the new Pope getting elected, and then 8 years later, the same place, the same picture, a different Pope, but everyone was like consuming that moment through their smartphones, and this is incredible what only 8 years can do with the people and how they use media. Another example that I found like really interesting, I found this on Twitter. Maybe you've seen it, the tweet is down below. It's like when I was saw the tweet, like, why are people standing with their devices in the middle of the ocean? And then, of course, the next tweet of that person showed the answer, and it was because of Pokemon Go. I mean, this was I don't know if it's still a trend, but it was a trend like 2 or 3 years ago, where people were standing somewhere and were catching Pokemons. And this is also, I found it quite interesting and impressive to see what mobile apps and mobile usage has done with us in terms of using our apps, and what are we going to do in order to make some profit or make some next level in some games. And the last example that I brought for you today is in 1999, more than 80 billion photos have been taken on old plain film, like Kodak films, right? So like stuff that you take a picture, you hand in the film to a shop, and you have to wait 2 weeks until you get the photo. So in 1999, 80 billion photos have been taken on film. That's quite an impressive number, right? Now let's take a look at the year 2015. In 2015, 2 trillion photos have been shared on social media. That's impressive, right? I mean, it's 16 years later, 2 trillion photos have been shared. And it's mind-blowing from my point of view, because those are the pictures that have been shared to social media. Now imagine how many pictures have really taken. Look at yourself again. How many pictures are you taking on your mobile device, and how many photos are you actually sharing? So that's impressive, and also should show you how the mobile technologies have changed our daily lives. And I think it's incredible. The last, I don't know, since 2007, the iPhone is available. So it's some years now, and it's impressive what happens to that. So, but now, what does it mean for us as software testers or software developers, for example? Let's take a brief look at the test management process. As we know, like really high level test management process, as we know. So we do some plannings, we have some test design, we have the test execution, we have some exit criteria, and then we do the test reporting, right? So that's the known test management process that we know, which is also like almost the same for mobile, but for mobile we have some other things to consider and we have to think about. So first of all is the user expectations. That's something I will talk about in a second. Second is the mobile devices, like the plethora of devices out there that could potentially affect your app. The mobile test scenarios, looking back at the Pokemon example, people standing somewhere in the ocean to use your app. So we have really to keep an eye on these scenarios where we are going to test our product. And we have different release cycles. So that's users expect always like the latest apps, bugs, having a fast fix cycle and stuff like that. And there's even more to think about. So that's the test process. And now I want to really dive into what are things that you can use for your daily life as a test engineer, test manager, wherever your title is all about, in order to improve your mobile testing activities. So high user expectation for mobile products. That's something that I have seen in the past years as well, that users have high expectations. And there's another example that I found is that Americans or US people check every 12 minutes their smartphone. And 10% of people even check their phone every 4 minutes. So it's like really something really personal. It's a really personal device for each and everybody out there. And they spend lots of money on the device itself. I mean, if you look, there's like really expensive devices on the market. And if you spend lots of money on a device, you at the same time, you expect also the software that is running on the device to be really smooth and perfect. Let's call it perfect. 88 of overall smartphone time spent on apps. That's also nothing new if you have seen the numbers before. So most of the time is spent on apps, not on web apps or like in any system app or something like that. So really using apps on the device. This was quite impressive when I first saw it. It's like that 80% of users delete an app after the first usage. So if you think about, we have more than 4 million apps in the app stores, in the iOS App Store and in the Google Play Store. And if the user don't like your app, they will just delete it, even after the first usage, and then they go to the next app that is available, maybe in a similar category or in the same industry, and they find something else. I mean, if you're building an app that has no competition, or like the single provider on the market, then you're in a lucky position because users can't go somewhere else. I mean, of course, they can delete the app and use maybe the web page instead, but this is in most cases not the nicest user experience. There are top 4 reasons for deleting an app. So the first one is, of course, it's bad design. So if an app has bad design, users will delete an app. If the app has a bad usability, users will delete the app. Loading times and app crashes. So users expect an app to be really fast. And I think if an app loads longer than 2 seconds, users are already like disappointed and say, oh, okay, this takes too much time. I don't want to wait that long. And they really expect a fluent and nice experience. And the same goes for app crashes. I mean, think of yourself again, if you see an app crashing, I think you will lose confidence pretty fast. And it's not a nice experience. Yeah, it's also quite impressive is that nearly 60% of mobile users will delete an app that requires a registration, right? So that's important to keep in mind. So I see myself also in the 60% because if I download an app and I first have to sign up, give my data in order to use the product, to see at least for some minutes what the product has to offer, I just delete it because I'm tired of registering to another service that I might not use any longer, or I just use for like really for one single purpose task. So that's why when you are developing an app or testing an app, keep in mind that registration is a hurdle for users and you should not do it. Maybe give some free content, some time to explore the app, what the app has to offer, and then decide to actually show up the registration wall and to actually keep the high user expectations into your mobile development and testing process. And yeah, this is something that I already talked about, is that users expect that an app loads in 2 seconds. So this is something that users hate waiting, including myself. I don't like to wait. And so it's really important to keep an eye on performance, on loading performance, but also on transitions. Whenever an app like goes from one screen to another, I mean, in the first variants, of course, it can go like ugly, like go to the next page, but then maybe have some smooth transitions to actually give the user the feeling that it's nice to use it. It's really helpful. In order to keep the high user expectations for mobile products in mind, I developed, but I am inspired by the KISS principle, like the keep it short and simple. I developed something that's called KidZoo. It's created for mobile apps, and it should keep you in mind, help you to remind the important things for the high user mobile expectations. So it stands for keep it fast, simple, and usable. This is something that I usually I print out and put into TeamSpace whenever I work with mobile developers and teams, saying, okay, this is one of our main goals. Like we actually have to keep it fast, simple, and usable, because otherwise we will lose our users. Yeah, if the app is not fast, they go away to go somewhere else. It must be simple and it must be easy to use. Otherwise, we are losing the game. So this is also maybe something interesting for you. I also wrote a blog post about this some years ago. You will find the link down here, and you can read further on what this is all about. So the next topic, getting to know your customers. Yeah, why is this important, right? I mean, if you know who's your target audience, it's much easier to focus your work on, like the development work, but also the testing work. And here are some snippets again that is important. So first of all, you should get information about your user needs and their preferences, right? Maybe you have a marketing department or a research department that you can ask, hey, can you give me some information? Who's our target customers? How old are they? Where they're coming from? What are their habits? What other apps have they installed? So really like gather information about your users, and then maybe derive from that like personas or next job to be done and stuff like that. Any kind of process that you would like to establish and information to actually use this for your development. Yeah, this is what I already said. In case you don't have an in-house research department, you can also ask and get some market research, collect data from there, go and buy some studies or create studies outside of your company. And you can also integrate tracking if you have already a product out on the market. Then this is the easiest way to get some more information about the habits of your users. How long are they using the app, which sections, and where they stop using the app and stuff like that. I know, I mean, every app out there has tracking anyways implemented. But if you don't have an app already on the market, then you can use studies, research, and stuff like that in order to get some more information. And last but not least, it's also valuable to talk to your users, right? What we have done in the past is, or actually doing it on a regular basis, that's still at my current company, is we have regular user interviews. We call it user feedback coffee, where we invite, like now in Corona times, we have digital feedback coffees for sure. We have like we have usually four users that we are going to invite. And then you have time, 15 minutes per user that you spend with the user. So you can ask them any question you would like to ask about the product, about the process, about the service itself, to actually get the feedback, to get to know your customer, and then to maybe really write down the scenarios and then use this to define your product roadmap or your testing activities, right? This is also a quick outlook already that I gave. It's like outline the most important scenarios and make them transparent to the company and the team. That's also important, right? If we know that what users really would like to use in the app, what are their main steps to actually achieve a goal in the app? Make them transparent to the team, especially to developers, because sometimes developers, they do what they have to do, like they get a ticket, they do the coding, but they miss the bigger picture. I just had this like 2 or 3 weeks ago when I'm working on a product, and then a developer came and was like, hey, yeah, we're doing this and that, but how's the product looking at overall picture? Like he was missing the overall picture. So this was again for me like, okay, maybe I should have done it better, like really to outline the scenarios, give the bigger picture, even though we had workshops in the beginning, but sometimes it's important to repeat this and also to give the knowledge about your customers to the team. That's helpful. Focus on user values, right? I mean, whenever you know what the users would like to solve, which problem they would like to solve, you should focus on those values. Don't focus on like, I don't know, internal processes or how you want to align with other teams to make a product better or to test the product better. Focus on the user values and then focus also on the testing activities on those user values. And this will also save you some time in order to ship the app to a faster audience. And what I just said is like that then mobile testers can plan their testing activities around this data, right? When you know the customer, you know information about what device are they using, where are they using the product, in which moment and what time frame and in which moment. This is valuable information for mobile testers and for mobile developers in order to make their lives easier, to really to focus, to narrow down on certain things, because looking at the mobile development and mobile testing, it's quite huge. And working with agile or in agile methodologies like Scrum or Kanban, you cannot test everything at every cycle. That's not possible. You have to focus, and focus is the key, right, from my point of view. And if you know more about customers, you can really focus on things. Involving customers into development is important. I already talked about the user feedback coffee. I think it's also in the next slide again. This is something we should really try out. You should get in contact with your customers. One thing that I've done also in the past is to establish a beta testing community. If you are developing an app for Android, iOS, or even you have a web app, there are ways in order to establish a beta testing community. What we have done, for example, is using the Google Play Store beta testing activities. So you can actually enable your app for beta testing. You can add some placement in the app, for example, saying, hey, please join our beta testing. We created a small group. And then users could ask like questions to the beta app, give feedback to the beta app. They could rate the beta version on the Play Store already without harming the overall app rating, but you get some early feedback. So this was quite helpful for us, like to establish a beta testing community. And the cool thing is, for example, on the Play Store and also for iOS, you can use TestFlight, for example, to distribute the app to the beta testing community to get early feedback. And for that, you could also do like nightly builds, send them nightly builds to test, to give feedback. yeah, send regular pre-builds to colleagues and customers. That's what we also have done in our current company. My current company is that we have more than 2,000 colleagues, and we actually we're not allowing them to use the app from the app stores. They have to use the distribution builds or the builds from the internal CI servers in order to give us feedback in the development phase, because they're also customers. We all use our own apps, so they're kind of customers, not like end customers, because we all like. At some point, you're shy, right, when you are working the whole day in the same app. But this is already important. And what I just said before is we also send the pre-builds to our customers in the beta testing communities. What we also are doing quite often, it's quite helpful, is to integrate feedback surveys to your apps. Like, for example, if a certain action has been performed, like sending 2 messages that have been successfully sent a quick NPS survey, like, hey, how do you like this app? Would you like to recommend this to a friend, or you would like to give us like a quick 2-question answers to this? Maybe you can give them some benefits. I don't know, in the case of a game development, you give them some free coins or some extra playing time, whatever is there. So to really get their feedback quite often, to involve them into the daily development. Yeah, this is important. Sync on a regular basis with the product manager, the user interface designer, and UX designer, but not only with them, because these are usually in the same team, working together with the testing people in the team, but also talk on a regular basis with the customer support people. That's what I have done in the past as well, like talking with them, not on a daily basis for sure, but like maybe like every 2 weeks, talking to them like, hey, what are the most complained responses from our users? What are they complaining about? And then in order to get this feedback, we can involve them again into development, even saying then, okay, next week we have the fixed rate available, go and check the App Store again. Sometimes we also mention users in the App Store release and saying, hey, thank you, Helen, for sending us the bug report. And users really like it, they appreciate it. And if you have this in place, they also come back with the feedback to you. And what I just said before is conducting user interviews in the own office, right? This is so valuable. If you're not allowed maybe to invite users to your office, might be some case for some companies. What we have done is we went to a cafe in the city. We asked some people that were in line, like, hey, you have 10 to 15 minutes. We would like to ask you some questions. We invite you for a coffee or a little snack. And then we got lots of good feedback on this. And this is also helpful for the development and then again for the testing activities that you're planning. So what else do we have? Yeah, of course, obvious, right? Check App Store reviews and comments. I mean, develop a habit to check them maybe twice a week, for example, go through the reviews and the comments that you get there. And also in case you can, if you have the rights to do so, reply to them. Give the users help, like, hey, you struggle with feature XYZ. You can do it, a workaround with doing step ABC. At the same time, take this feedback back to the team and to the product manager, for example, and talk about improvements that you can bring to the app. And with that, you have also involved them to the development phase and give the users already a good feeling. Because what I usually do is when I give some feedback in the app stores and then I get just like the standard reply from the company. Yeah, thanks for your feedback. We forwarded it to the team. And that means almost nothing, right? But if you get direct help or further instruction, this is really nice and helpful. And last but not least, but also should be obvious, but also have seen teams that are not doing it, is check error reports and log files from users, right? If you have like a crash reporting system in place, or even like on the Play Store, or if you use TestFlight or any other tool that is available on the market, you get some crash reports and crash logs. You should also check them from time to time. If not done by the developers, ask them to do so, or get permission to the servers in order to check the logs and reports. This is helpful for you as a tester to narrow down some critical parts of the app, I would say. Okay, what are mobile testing scenarios then? Yeah, depending on the app use case, it differs from app to app, right? That's what I've told already with Pokemon example. Look at the 3 pictures, right? I mean, if you are developing an app, let's say for outdoor sports activities that maybe is recording like your skiing activities in the Alps, you have maybe different testing scenarios that when the app is used on, or the app has use case to be used on the beach, for example. And an example that comes to my mind is that, for example, you're on a nice beach and the city or they offer some free Wi-Fi, and you have a special app to sign up for this one. Make sure that the app is like really able to read in bright sunlight and things like that. So you really think of the moment where the app will be used later on, and then design and test for that special use cases. And that also means that you have to go out of the office, right? Don't test also only in the office, but go outside and also maybe walk down the city in order to test the product, and you will see some nice side effects. Of course, also the app tech stack also influences the testing scenarios for mobile testers. So depending on the tech stack, if you're relying on an API, on a backend service, you should also try to test the APIs if you can. If you have the knowledge, you should do it. If not, maybe ask for some help or get some training to also test APIs. And also, since most of the apps are relying on a backend service, on a backend cloud service, it's important that you also get some testing ideas about those sections, right? So that also take a look at the backend, see that the backend is fast enough to deliver the responses to the clients and things like that. So there's like a plethora of things that you also have to keep in mind. And it's not only testing on the app, or like on the front end. Yeah, that's important. So what are typical testing scenarios that you should think of is interrupt testing, right? If you have your app available on a device and maybe call the app or press the volume button, press the power button while the app under test is open to see how it reacts, if it's crashing, if it gets slower or whatever can happen. Check for permissions. I mean, this is now baked into most of the operating systems, in the latest operating systems, but still see how the app reacts if you grant permissions in the app, but then later on go to the system settings and revoke the permissions. Is the app handling this case? Yeah, there are flows for the platforms available, but you have to make sure that those are available and also clear to the users, and only ask for the permissions that you really need to use, right? Standby testing is something really interesting. So you, for example, you open the app, put the device in standby, like switch off the device, like turning it on, turning it off, put the device back, and then maybe after half an hour you come back, you wake up the device and see what the app is doing. Is the app, for example, fetching the latest data from the backend? Is it still on the same screen? And so forth and so forth. So, and at the same time, also check the battery consumption. Maybe you note down the battery consumption before, and then later on you can see if the app maybe uses maybe too much battery. What else? Yeah, sensors. I mean, such a device these days is packed with, I don't know, tens of different sensors, proximity sensors, acceleration, gyroscope, all these kinds of things that you can do with the device. Keep them in mind in case you're using them, that you also have to test against those sensors, right? To see also different manufacturers, especially in Android, there are different sensors from different vendors out there. So it's important to keep them in mind and to test against them. Accessibility testing, yes, of course. You should also keep the accessibility in mind, that you have like the right contrast, color contrast, the text can be resized, stuff like that, but also to check the screen recording. If your app can be like screen, not screen recording, but screen with the voiceover assistant can be used so that it can be talked what is seen on the screen. There was one's too fast, but I keep them open. Security is important. I mean, security is like really, really complex and a difficult topic. I'm not a security expert myself neither. So whenever we have security questions, I contact experts. I'm lucky that I'm in my company right now. We have a security team that I contact in case I have some questions in regards to that direction. But it's also helpful maybe to check some of the online trainings out there to at least get some basic security testing knowledge. And other than that, maybe get help from some external parties that you can ask and get some guidance. Third-party apps, also interesting testing scenario for mobile apps. So for example, if your app offers an export to calendar, don't rely on the pre-installed calendars, right? I mean, look at the app stores. You can find, I don't know, thousands of different calendar implementations. Maybe install the most installed calendar from each platform and see how your own app is also working with this calendar app. Or another example is the keyboard apps, right? I mean, there's like the stock keyboard apps installed, But for example, SwiftKey is a keyboard that is used by many, many other users out there. And I usually found like really nice bugs with using third-party apps, especially keyboards, because especially SwiftKey was usually too high when we were building our apps, and some of the UI elements were blocked behind the keyboard and they were not accessible for our users. So we had to adapt also according to some third-party apps as well. Yeah, gestures, I mean, it's obvious, but it's sometimes too obvious, right? I mean, use the different finger gestures that you can do on a mobile device. Do two finger rotations in case you have this implemented. Keep them in mind, use multiple fingers for input to actually try to see how the app reacts on those inputs. Multitasking, yeah, put the app into the background, bring it to the foreground again, see how the app is handling this scenario. Is the app updating the data, refreshing the UI and things like that? It's not crashing, it's not getting slow or anything like that. App data, yeah, see what app data the app is putting on the device, right? If there are like too many data on the device left, the local storage can be flooded. And if the local storage is full, how is the app behaving on this scenario? Is it giving the user like a nice information, or is it crashing? I don't know. You should try it out. In-app purchase, also interesting. If you have in-app purchase in place, you should test this, of course, right? I mean, there's also some really nice platform guidelines from Apple and Google provided how to test in-app purchase. And it's important because it's usually revenues, and I think it's critical to test and to keep in mind this as a test scenario. Performance, it goes into the similar direction as security from my point of view, because also performance is complex and not easy to do. Especially looking at mobile apps, you have basically 3 layers to test for performance. First one is the app itself, right? The UI, the transitions from screen to screen. The second one is the API. Is the API performant enough? And the third one is the backend performance. Is the backend system performant enough, fast enough to deliver the responses to the clients? And also here, it's helpful to get some either support from developers if they're like keen in this area, or you ask some experts. Yeah, usability, also really, really important. There are again guidelines out there available, but usability testing should be part of your daily routine, right? I mean, we all use apps out there and we see usually weird usability behaviors, and this is also something you should always keep in mind when testing your own apps, that usability is one of the top level criteria for users when they want to use an app. It must be usable, must be easy to use. So that's why keep also always usability in mind. It must be easy to use. Mobile networks, as I said before, leave the office, leave the Wi-Fi, test in different mobile networks. Not everybody is using a strong Wi-Fi or a strong LTE connection. Maybe in some regions, they have only the edge internet connections or 3G. Try to also test the different change from 3G to 4G and backwards. This can be done on the emulators level, but still is something you should always keep in mind, how the app is behaving at that level. Is the app crashing at some point if the responses take too long, or are we going to show like error messages to the users? Important to test and to keep in mind. Battery consumption, I already told that in the standby testing scenario. So battery is something really interesting, especially if you like rendering lots of UI elements and components. Battery consumption is important to test. Keep an eye on it. I mean, there are like you can have some tools that are coming with Xcode and with Android Studio that you can see how the battery consumption is. But you could also do it like, for example, charge the device fully to 100%, put the app in background and leave the device, for example, till the next day, and then see what has happened. I mean, also the platforms offer now the battery consumption overview. You can see that those apps use the most of the batteries, and your app should not be listed there. Users don't like it. So keep an eye on this as well. Other than that, you should improve running processes, checking the threads running in the background and stuff like that. And last but not least, I also talked already about it, local storage. Yeah, check how the app is behaving if the local storage is completely full. So put the device full of data, the test device, and then see how the app is reacting to this one. Is it crashing? Is it showing nice UI error, nice error messages or information? or what's actually happening. Yeah, that's important to test. And one more thing regarding batteries, just coming to my mind, also test the app under test with the low battery, like for 10%, because most of the devices, they turn off, for example, vibration elements on the device, or they switch off some GPS capacity, check how your app is handling, also those kind of things. So low battery testing is important as well. And since this was just like a quick small excerpt of mobile testing scenarios, I created, you cannot read it, don't worry, you can have the PDF later on my blog. I shared lots of more scenarios and even some more detailed steps that you can do in order to succeed on the mobile testing scenarios. I created a testing cheat sheet. It's also available on my blog. You go there, download the PDF, and feel free to add more of those things that are needed to test for your app, especially. Also, one takeaway from you is a mnemonic that I created. It's a heuristic that I created together with Ministry of Testing. You can go to the link down there, and it's, I will not tell you now what this is all about. You should find out yourself, but it's behind each letter, there's like a helpful insight on when it comes to mobile testing that might help you in order to test your app more successful. Yeah, enjoy. And if you have questions, let me know afterwards once you've read it. Let's come to some testing challenges that we have, that I have, that I've seen in the past. And since mobile testing is quite complex, if you look at, let's go quite back again. If you look at the PDF or the cheat sheet here, it's quite complex. There are lots of scenarios that is important to think of. I brought today basically two challenges that I wanted to talk about. And the first one is devices. So how you can actually handle the mobile device fragmentation. So this is something I want to talk about. And the second one is automation. So how to handle mobile test automation in order to get started, in order to get the benefits out of it. So let's get started with the hardware. For those of you who have checked like latest market research, stuff like that, we have fragmentations on both platforms, right? It's not an Android only fragmentation problem anymore. I mean, on Android, it's still bigger than on iOS, for example, but on Android, I think we have more than 25,000 or even more different device combinations from a hardware and software combination point of view. On iOS, I think we have now something like 20 to 30 different devices on the market. If we use iPods, iPads, and iPhones, the different screen sizes and different software, it's even more than 30 combinations. But there's a device fragmentation as well. And what I have done in the past basically is, in order to handle the device problematic, is to group my devices. Again, with the help of the user data and the customer information that I know what devices are used by my customers and by our customers. And therefore, I grouped the devices. I created 3 groups. So group 1 is highest priority. It's basically the devices that are used most by our users. It's in our case, it's at the moment, we are in a good position. I would say we have users with high-end devices, quad-core CPU, lots of memory, like really nice displays, big screen. So we have lots of space to design our app. Then we can rely on powerful hardware. So that's good. So, and in this device group, we put, for example, let's say, I think at the moment we have 10 to 12 devices in that group that represents those key facts on the group. Then we have a second group, it's group B. It's like mid-range devices with less CPU capacity, less memory, smaller screen size. Software should not be older than 1 year. So we have a little less priority here. But still functionality should work. So for group 1, for example, everything must work, like from UI point of view, transitions, usability, the performance must be great of the app, that everything must be perfect. Group B, still functionality must be perfect. So the app must function, but there might be maybe user has to scroll down once or twice, right? In order to see some other UI elements, for example, because the screen is maybe smaller, things like that. And then group C is, it's like really small devices, single core CPU, not that much of memory, lower screen resolution, an older operating system, older browser versions installed. Still, the device or the app must work on those devices as well, but there might be some UI glitches. Yeah, maybe the button text goes in 2 lines, not in 1 line, and things like that. So that's something that we established. And as I said, we are using like 10 to 12 devices each group. And whenever we test in the team and also within the company, we select like 2 to 3 devices from each group, and then test against those groups and against those devices. And with that, we can really narrow down the testing effort on the release basis. Yeah, it helped me a lot, and it helps also the team that I'm working with. And of course, everything based on your target group. So your different groups might look completely different, right? Maybe you have completely different key facts here, but it might be helpful for you. Yeah. Coming to test automation. First of all, and most important to know, when it comes to test automation tools especially, there is no silver bullet on the market, right? Every tool that is on the market has some pros and cons. There's some really good ones out there that you can really use in order to test all your mobile activities. But as I said, there's always something, either you have to code something on your own, or you miss some feature. So that's always important to keep in mind. Whenever we start with something new, we say, okay, start simple with automation, right? Because automation should support you, should not block you. It should support your testing activities. And in best case, it's that simple that it frees up your time for real testing, right? Because the tests that you have written in an automated way are just checking the stuff that you have coded into it, right? But it doesn't look left and right what's happening around there. And that's valuable time that we should use as testers in order to get some more feedback and some more insights into the quality. So that's why I usually say start simple, start with small steps, and then we can take it from there. Yeah. Okay, that's what I just said. Automation should support your testing activities, and it will never replace testing. That's something, whenever I hear managers saying, yeah, let's automate all the things, 100% test coverage. It's like, yeah, okay. He or she has no idea what he or she is talking about. Test automation is good, it's important, but it will never replace testing. That's something important to know, and it's the same for mobile. Yeah, invest time to find the right test automation tool that fits your needs and requirements. As you can see, I'm not going into different vendors at the moment, because usually I get question asked like, hey, what's the perfect mobile app test automation tool that I should use? I think it depends. It depends on your requirements. It depends on your system architecture. It depends on your tech stack. It depends. Yeah. So what I usually do is I'm writing down like pros and cons of each device that might fit to my environment, and I see, okay, is this requirement met? Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. And then at the end I know, okay, 5 of my most important requirements are met. This is something that I can take a look at, right? So that's important. So that's what you have to do. It's your homework basically. Once you have found the right tool that fits your needs and fits your requirements and also your skills, you should invest time in the CI pipeline and in general in the testing infrastructure, right? I mean, it doesn't make sense to have like a test automation tool that runs only on your computer and that's it. You do the testing manually, or not manually, but you execute them manually on your machine. Developers, they will not benefit from it. So you also need to invest in the CI pipeline, integrate a testing tool in the pipeline there, and also in the general testing infrastructure. The general testing infrastructure, I mean that you should also invest time in how test data is generated and how this test data can then be used by the testing framework in order to automate things and to check things. And yeah, last but not least, if you are not able to develop yet, or you can't write code yet, get support from your developers. And I think this is also a task that developers must heavily support, because they really rely on this feedback as well. Yeah, it's not the testers owning the quality, it's the team effort. The whole team is responsible for the quality, and if developers don't like to support this kind of activities, it's not a good way, I would say, right? I mean, they have to support it, and they need to also spend time on writing test automation and also investing in the infrastructure. That's important. And in best case, it's a team activity that you share the tasks across the team. Okay, let's talk about release mobile products more frequently. As I said earlier, mobile users expect high quality apps, and they also expect like frequent release cycles, right? They expect always an app to be less buggy and less error prone and stuff like that. So companies really need to see how they release more often. As I already said, users expect a bug-free app, which we all know doesn't exist, but at least the users expect it. So that's why we need to release more often, like really frequent, not too frequent, but in a frequent rhythm. Yeah. What helps you in order to release more frequent is that you have planned code freezes and app releases. That helps actually you and maybe other teams that maybe contribute to the app and to give guidance to the team. So for example, in my case at the moment, we have around about 20-25 mobile teams contributing to one single app. And with such a planned code freeze, it's really give the teams guidance. And okay, every second Thursday we have code freeze. So we must be on time to actually catch the code freeze at, I think it's 8 p.m. at the moment. So then the teams must be ready. It helps the team to give guidance, to give them a clear process, what they need to do in order to be on the next release. And this happens always. Yeah. That's what I just said. It's helpful to have a regular release cycle, for example, every 2 weeks. But this depends on your product, on your release schedule and stuff like that, on your own schedule, on the product development. What we are doing at the moment, we're releasing every 2 weeks a product to our customers. And maybe sometimes in between once more, in case there's like critical hotfixes that needs to be applied, then of course we do like an ad hoc release to the customers. But usually we stick to the 2 weeks release cycle. And it's also like known in the company and also by the product manager, so that they cannot sneak something in. Hey, there's like something, I want my product to be out tomorrow. Can you not do like an excuse for me? It's like, no, we stick to the plan, because then everybody knows, okay, we have 2 weeks and then we're good to go. When working with multiple teams, a so-called release train can help. That's also what we've established. It's a process where we say, okay, release train is basically a process. It contains a planned code freeze. It contains a regular release of 2 weeks, and it comes with some other rules, like you have to have some unit tests in place for all new features. You have to have some, in case it makes sense, some end-to-end tests in place or some API tests in place. Before we release, all the tests must be green. So once we have frozen the code, we do some testing activities. I'll come to that also in a second. And then once we have all the thumbs up from every team, there was some manual testing also involved. And we say, okay, we shipped the app to our users. Yeah, every team need to catch the release train in order they want to release if they're late. And if they're like 5 minutes, even 1 second after the code freeze, they're coming, it's too late. They know the process, they know the ruling. If they're too late, they're too late. They have to catch the next train. It's the same if you go to the main station, you're running already with your luggage. It's usually never a good sign if a team is running with code, with pull requests and want to catch the release train. There's usually something that you can easily find. So don't accept late passengers. That's what I always said here, is freeze the code automatically to avoid late passengers. So what we have done is we have like an automatic code freeze that we like use the code on master branch at 8 p.m. and move it to the release branch, and this is locked. Nobody can add code afterwards. Of course, there's some people who can, but it should not be done without further discussions, without really further looking into it. And nobody from other teams can do it. We have a central team handling all those processes, and they have like the power to say no. Okay, so releasing frequently is important, but how can this look like? So this is something what we introduced as a release train. We have 10 days of coding. And once we have the code freeze, we already upload to Google. That's the example of the Play Store, of the Google app, of the Android app. We have then beta testing in place. So once we have code freeze in place, we do the beta testing for 7 days. While we're doing beta testing, we also do some internal testing, like let the test automation run again, do some manual regression tests again. And if everything is okay, we say, okay, this is a beta app that we go on in the next cycle. Then we go like to 20% of our users for 2 days. So we slowly ramp up our user base. If then all numbers looking good, feedback looking good, crash logs looking good, we go to 50% for some more days. And in case if this is all good again, we go then to 100%. This is what we do for the Android apps. And then, of course, after the code freeze, before the code freeze, we have another coding cycle that is coming along the way. And this is how we handle the release train and like the release process in place that we've done. And with that, we made really good experience. We get lots of good feedback in the beta testing community already. And if something really is really crashing and really nasty, we already noticed this here, right? I mean, the 20% stage. And then we can stop the release saying, okay, we will not further roll out to more users. We even patch this version, or we say we wait like 2 weeks and then we have a new version out as well. What you also need to do is to monitor the app release. I mean, that should be a no-brainer, right? You cannot like just press the button, say, okay, press and pray, so to say. Like you really have to monitor the app release, like just check the release logs, the crash logs, and also the reviews out there. Maybe even social media. That should be covered. Check the crash logs, check social media and feedback in the stores, in order to get some more valuable feedback if an app release is really successful or not. Yeah, and in fact, there's something that's really critical. You have to react fast, right? To fix the bug. What I did, also you can find it on my blog. I missed it to put it here. Is it's a so-called bug matrix where I noted down like, okay, what's critical enough in order to make a hotfix, because making a hotfix, it's quite, let's say, expensive, because other teams have to retest maybe their code sections as well, again and again. And there are some examples what it's worth in hotfix. For example, the in-app payment is not working. For example, the login is not working anymore. And what's not worth doing a hotfix? Maybe a UI element is shifted to the right. It's not worth doing a hotfix, and things like that. If you go to my blog, search for bug matrix, you can find it as well. Okay, and once you have released the app, that's it. I hope you have nice user experience out there, happy customers, and then you continue on with your mobile development and mobile testing activities. What are some takeaways here? Mobile technology changed our lives. What you have seen, right, with the different examples that I brought you today, it's impressive what have come. I mean, it's a lot of things to come, I guess, and I'm looking forward to it, because I'm really like to work in this kind of area and then also in the technology field. The mobile market is still growing, so you should also keep it in mind that it's still like lots of potential out there, lots of opportunities, and also like still a growing user base. So it's important for you and your business, and also for your testing activities, to look for new ways in order to test things and to explore new things as well. Still important to remember, to keep in mind, is that users have a high expectation to your product and to service, especially mobile users. You should get to know your customers, interact with them, to really like to engage with them, to get some feedback, as you've seen in examples. It's helpful for you as testers, but also helpful again for the customers, because they feel welcome, right? I mean, usually when we talk to users, like, hey, it's so nice that you involve us into the development activities. We feel welcome, we feel appreciated, we feel important, and it's good to build a relationship also with their customers. You should define your test scenarios based on the app and the tech stack. Remember the things that I showed you, and also the big cheat sheet that you can take a look later on. There are so many testing scenarios that you should keep an eye on, and then you should again focus on the things that are really important for the next release, for a bigger release, because it's impossible to test everything on each release cycle. It's just impossible. You need to identify your own challenges and start to tackle them, right? Every team, every app has own challenges that need to be tackled. Being it to different devices, grouping them, being it to test automation, maybe it's other kinds of manual testing that needs to be tackled as a challenge, or it's test data generation, it's a security, it's the backend, and so every app is different, and that's something you need to identify on your own, make some notes, and then find ways in order to how to test them in your testing activities. Most important thing I would say is always start simple and reconsider your approach from time to time. I mean, we have used, I think by now, 3 or 4 testing frameworks over the course of 10 years now of our app. It's nothing set in stone. That's what I always say to teams. It's like, we have a tool right now that fits to our needs, maybe for 1 or 2 years. We should use the tool, make the best out of it, and then maybe in 2 or 3 years, the world has changed and it looks better on the other side maybe. And then we should adopt our approaches and our environment as well. And that's important. So you should not stand still and wait for somebody else to come. You should always look out for new things and ways how to explore things and to test things in a different way. And with that, I think the 1 hour is exactly over. I would like to say thank you. Yeah, again, my Twitter handle, my URL. In case you have questions, let me know. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Daniel. I actually see quite a lot of people joining in now. I'm assuming that there was some sort of mix up with the time. So I will tell everyone that joined in just now that we will send the recording of this webinar. And you can always contact Daniel using his email or Twitter or his other contact details that he shared on his presentation. I also want to thank you, Daniel, because I mean, I'm not from the mobile testing world, and even first of all, I got some really, really interesting insights about mobile testing, but not only that, but also like general test management, which is terrific. I did receive one question that I will quickly ask you. So you talked a bit about asking for help from your customers, from your developers, and there's someone here asking, what is the one thing in mobile testing you would not do on your own, but you would ask for help?
Security. From my point of view, security testing. I mean, I know this OWASP page. There's like some really nice, the 10 most critical security breaches at the moment on the mobile world that you can read through, but it's really complex. I mean, security is something that is really, really important. It's critical to your business, right? I mean, if you really like screw up the security part, if you're, let's say your user data is getting stolen or the credit card information or anything like that, this is something that I cannot foresee and oversee everything in total, because mobile testing and testing in general is such a huge topic, and security itself is such a huge topic. And it's nothing that somebody should, I will never do it as a side thing, like, oh yeah, security, I have my 5 minutes left, let's do some security tests. No, that's not going to work. And that's where I really get help from experts. No.
I hear you. Yeah, and it also makes sense for mobile testing, as users usually, have older data there and
exactly.
So on.
Exactly,
okay, great, terrific. So yeah, unfortunately, we're out of time, but this was great. Thank you very, very much. All of you who just joined, I'm going to say it again. You're going to receive the recording within the next few days, so don't worry about it. You'll get it all. Thank you again, Daniel. As always, it's a pleasure having you. And see you around.
Thank you. Have a great day, everybody. Ciao, ciao. Bye-bye.
Bye.